Now I invite the chief guest of our program, Professor Rajendra Pratap Gupta, who is a member of NEP 2020, who is a policymaker and renowned author. The introduction of our chief guest is like this. Professor Rajendra Prasad Gupta is a sought-after policymaker who has contributed to policymaking across governance, health, education, and economy. He has been contributing to policymaking for over a decade, not just in India, but also globally, working with various governments, government agencies, different multilateral bodies, and with global UNESCO global organizations. Professor Rajendra Gupta has been invited by global organizations like UN, UNESCO, World Bank, World Trade Organization, WHO, World Economic Forum, International Telecommunications Union, and Asian Development Bank. Also by United States of America, government of Japan, Finland, Algeria, Bangladesh, and also by the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Human Resource Development, Ministry of Labor and Employment, and the Planning Commission of Government of India for his views on a diverse range of issues. Professor Gupta has served as an advisor to the Union Minister for Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. Also, he has served as a member of National Education Policy Committee, Ministry of Education, Government of India, and a member of Khadi and Village Industries Commission, Government of India, and has served various committees of GY. He is the chair of Frontiers of Development Program, Royal Academy of Engineering, the Royal Society, the Academy of Medical Sciences, and the British Academy UK, and chair of the Dynamic Coalition on Internet and Jobs at the Internet Governance Forum, United Nations. Professor Gupta has authored 4 books and travels extensively and has delivered over 200 talks across the world on a range of topics. Over to you, Professor Rajendra Pratap Gupta. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nandita, and namaste to everyone.
Sir, kindly unmute yourself.
Sorry, can you hear me? Namaste. I thank the organizers, JNU, Akhil Bharatiya Shikshan Mandal, Niti Aayog, and after listening my previous speakers, prolific Professor Sachinand Joshi, Mukulji, Mazhar-bhai, I think I definitely needed a PowerPoint. I am not as good as they are. And what I'm going to do in this talk on a very important topic about the role of teachers in implementing the national education policy is, firstly, I'm going to share some nuggets of information which are still not in public domain. I think that makes it more interesting. And I'm going to talk to you the thinking behind this NEP and what it means for teachers in implementing the NEP, which is very important. As Mukulji said, you can read the 66-page policy, but if you understand the thinking behind it, you will actually implement it in a sense. So let me share with you how it all started. It was 22nd of July 2013 when I got a call from Professor Murli Manohar Joshi, an eminent educationist, physicist, and former HRD minister. He said, Rajendra, I'm again appointed chairman of the manifesto committee, and you have to help me draft it. And obviously, it's always an honor to work with him. So when we sat deciding what the country should look like in the new regime and what is our long-term vision, as an educationist, he had views on certain topics which are very strong, and one of them was saying, Rajendra, since 1966 Kothari Commission, we haven't actually done much for education in a comprehensive manner. So that's where the seed of this education policy was sown, in terms of setting up that we needed a new education policy. Our Honorable Prime Minister made it a political mandate, and we know that when he makes it a political mandate, country delivers. One person who has always shied from taking credit, but has played a very integral role, it will be wrong of me not to thank him. He is Prakash Bhai, our Honorable former HRD Minister, who gave us the freedom and also made sure that we had everything we needed to develop this policy, which was done during his tenure, and our Honorable Nishant ji, who launched this policy. Now, with this, I must move into my talk. And coming from a family of teachers, my both parents have been teachers. This is what I know of what teacher means. The mediocre teacher tells, a good teacher explains, a superior teacher demonstrates, a great teacher inspires. To me, that's the teacher. I come from a family of academicians, as I said. But if you were to look at the role of teachers in implementing national education policies, we all have to understand going beyond books, going beyond four walls. So what are those things? So let us first understand how the power has evolved. In the prehistoric times, it was the physical strength that meant power. So if you were physically strong, you were powerful. Then came, if you had a large agriculture holding, you were strong. Then came the military prowess. If you had a strong military, you were strong as a nation. Then came the 20th century, the economic might. If you are economically strong, you are strong as a nation. This is 21st century. It is about scientific strength. Hence, you can understand what was the need and what's the role of education in this country. The next thing we need to understand is the economic strength. So just look at these numbers. If we classify countries according to the World Bank and IMF classification of countries, they get into four categories. I especially highlighted the 1026 to 3995. And I'm going to talk in the next slide what it means. So India is still in the middle rung of the lower and middle income countries. You can look at this data. We are still at, last year, our GDP per capita is $1,876. So when you as teachers, or when we as teachers work on implementing NEP, our goals are clear. It's the scientific strength, it's the economic strength that we need to look at. I did an analysis about what India needs to do in terms of, growth. And this I captured in a book I wrote on economy last year, Tough Choices and Hard Decisions. So you have where India stands today. We have a long way to go. Note this number, which is 15.81. And I'll relate to the subsequent slide of what it means for teachers, when you're looking at implementing the NEP. This is one of the key roles and key goals for this nation as well. So India has to grow exponentially for the next 25 years. This is something that the implementation of NEP should get this nation. This is also very important. If you look at GDP growth and job, this is something that I developed, 3 years ago, and I called it the cost of job creation. I looked at all the data and checked if India has to create what we have been always talking about at 1 to 1.2 crore jobs per year. What is the kind of growth we need? So if 1% GDP growth leads to 7.5 lakh jobs, 1 crore job means we need to grow at 13.3% per year. If you have to grow at 1.2 crore jobs, we need to grow at 16% per year. So if you look at the last slide's number of 15.83 to grow for next 25 years to become a developed nation, all the more important because what we need is 16% growth per year to meet the job requirements. Very clear cutout task for the implementation of NEP. So with high quality education, it is achievable. Now, what Professor Sachidanand Jeet was talking about, the demographic dividend, a very interesting thing for us. We are, I think, at average age of 29 years. We still remain the youngest country in the world. But every dividend comes with an opportunity. What is that demographic opportunity for India? We are going to have this opportunity only till 2045. I have done extensive research with the data that's available. For the next 25 years, we need to use this opportunity. And why do we do that? And let me tell you, for that, NEP's demographic responsibility rests with teachers to implement. The reason being, in 2045, we will have 338 million senior citizens, which is 20% of our population. If NEP takes care of the skilling, reskilling, upskilling needs of all age groups, we would have delivered on our demographic responsibility to leverage the demographic dividend. So this is also one of the goals that we need to keep in mind while implementing our NEP as teachers. Without environment, any talk doesn't go well, because we need to look at the sustainability of the planet. I brought in the concept of the Earth Overshoot Day. We have limited resources, and we look at the number of regenerable resources we have in a year. Look at the countries and how they are using the resources. Some countries exhaust the regenerable resources by the second month in a year, some by third month. Overall, for last year, the world as a whole, we ran out of resources, actually regenerable resources, by 22nd August, which is the 8th month in a year. So the NEP implementation should address the issues of environment, lead to people who look at holistic development. This is very important. Of course, I don't think that Nobel Prize is a measure for the scientific prowess or success, but that's how the world looks at. So I was doing a search on how many Nobel Prize did India win in science. And as a member of the NEP, it was my job to look at all the things, all the data available. So the last Nobel Prize in science was in 1930. I hope we don't have to wait a decade more to get one. So we got it almost 91 years ago. I think one of the responsibilities of teacher as implementing NEP is that the quality of research takes us high on this list. Unless I got the data wrong, which it should be because it comes straight from the Nobel Prize website. Now, this is an analysis I did, and it is there in the book that I wrote, was released months before the NEP. It's on the role of higher education and economy. And so the teachers in higher education and the administrators have to consider this. There is a direct relation in the number of doctorates we produce. India has 10,000 doctorates, 3 innovation hubs, and almost a $3 trillion economy. Look at China. We always get compared to them. They have 30,000 doctorates a year, 17 innovation hubs, and 3 times our economy. The United States, which still remains the global leader, has 15,000 doctorates a year, 27 innovation hubs, and 21 trillion economy. I've specifically linked these 3 numbers to give a sense of what should we be looking at when we implement the NEP in total essence. Now, this is a comparison that we should be looking at. India got independence 2 years before China. The numbers tell the story. You look at the patent applications, you look at the top science and technology innovation clusters in the top 50, we as a country don't figure in the list. China has 2. I think it's a call to action for our fraternity to focus when we look at implementing the NEP. And very important point to note is China's R&D expenditure, which is a part of the global expenditure, has increased from 10% in 1996 to 37% in 2017. And China accounted for 2% of global patents in 1997, and now it is 44%. I want to highlight one aspect of this slide, and it actually is mentioned in detail in the book that I wrote. All these innovation clusters are actually in the universities. So all the more our universities have to be the hub for growth. India is aspiring to be a superpower under a strong leadership. At least that's the least we expect that will happen. If that has to happen, we first need to be an education hub for the world. That's the fundamental thing. Once we are there, we need to be the R&D hub. Then only we become a manufacturing hub. Without the first 2, the last doesn't happen. When we go ahead to implement the education policy, let's not forget the intent behind why and how it was written. So I'm focusing here on the universities, given that we are speaking to JNU and, our people from academia, from higher education. So what I look at universities to be, first, the industrial hub, focus on R&D. Second is fundamental research. So which is defining the frontiers of India's development, what they should be like. Economic and capital hub. So I do expect that 50% of all startups should take shape in the university. Innovation hub. Cross-sectoral innovation is something that we need to do things, and I'm going to quickly run on this. But this is something that you must be very clear about. When we were drafting this, we had an overarching theme. 3 filters with every recommendation has passed through. One is opening the minds, removing artificial barriers, and making India future ready. So when you look at doing anything with regards to implementation, do not forget these 3 points. Interact with students. As a member of the committee, I went to villages. I spoke with students across the country. Second is global exposure. I think all people involved in education should not just look at exposure in India, across India, but also look at collaboration, exchange programs at the global level, cross-sectoral experience, application-oriented research, and innovation-driven, and it should be a startup hub. This is the decade of transformation. So teachers in today's time will have to look at doing the most of the heavy lifting, is to have a long-term vision, ideate and create. See, policy always gives a direction and nothing beyond. Interpretation is the challenge, which you will have to be carefully thinking of the reason and the thinking behind the education policy. And then comes the implementation, which will be the sole responsibility of the educationists. I'm not going to look at this. I think it's very much covered. There is flexibility of the students, teachers, and the universities. So I'm not going to talk about that. We tried to do a whole lot of things. I'll just skip this. And I'm going to give you 2 examples. And these are the anecdotes that Mazhar Bhai has been a part of our policy. He played a key role there. And this is important for you in terms of message for the role of teachers. These are my last, I guess, 2 slides. So in the education policy, anyone who came to meet us always emphasized that, sir, ये time आ गया, अब Finland model हम लोग को copy कर लेना चाहिए. And I always used to ask, why do you say Finland model? No one had that answer, saying this is the best that delivers. They have the best PISA rankings and the PISA scores. And by that time, I had written a book on education, done extensive research. Then one fine day, I had to tell those people who came and submitted again that Finland model copy kariye. I said, you should understand why the Finland model delivers. There's a basic culture in Finland. You are expected to deliver for what you are paid. So if this is the part of our culture in terms of we will deliver what is expected of us, we will deliver whether we have a Finland model or any other model. This is one of the key things that people should have implementing the NEP to deliver what is envisioned in the policy. The second thing is the Indian Education Service. I think this has been a constant demand since the Kothari Commission. It was also put in the Subramaniam Committee report, which was the precursor to the NEP. And anywhere I went, the constant demand would come that we should have the Indian Education Service. And I always said that if I were there in the committee, I would never let it happen. And for reason is, I don't want bureaucracy in education. And I'll give you an example of what happened. So I asked our chairman to allow me 30 seconds to, give him a reason why we should not have IES, as a consideration. So we had a bureaucrat, we had 3 vice chancellors in our committee, and I just took few seconds to tell them that just suppose and assume that I am the only IES qualified guy in this room. With 3 vice chancellors and an IES in this room, I would only ask you one thing when you start giving your sermons, that, sir, respect my cadre. I am the only IES qualified person in the room. Please hear me out. After that, will you be able to speak? Will it work even if you're a vice chancellor? So I insisted that let's drop the IES thing. We don't want bureaucracy in education. So my request to teachers, to policymakers implementing is that please work and see that the secretary education is an educationist, not an IES. That's a very important thing for NEP to get implemented. And I will end with my last slide, which is about your role. We are all a product of the system. But remember that the new system will be a product of our efforts. That's the role of teachers. And with this, I end. And all I said is there in the 2 books I wrote. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Professor Rajendra Gupta, for your valuable talk. We have definitely learned a lot. Now I invite our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Jagdish Kumar, who is a leader, influential leader, and he's a man of execution and vision. We are